Okay, the essential question for video 13, how do you make and use stem plots and histograms? So we're going to start with looking at what a stem and leaf plot is. Okay, so it's a data display that organizes data based on their digits. So one of the great things about a stem and leaf plot is you can actually see the numbers in the plot. So there's a few parts to it. First is the stem. The stem is the leading digits or digit of a number. So if it's a two-digit number like 32, the 3 would be in the stem. If it's like 413, it could be 41 that is in the stem. But it's the leading digit or digits of a number. The leaf is always the last digit of a number. So if you look at the two numbers I just wrote, 2 would be the leaf because it's the last digit of that number, or the 3 is what we call the leaf because it's the last digit of the number. And then another part that you need to make sure you have with all stem and leaf plots is the key. The key tells you how to read the data. It lets you know whether there was an extra 0 that was left off, if there was some rounding that was done, if there's a decimal point in the problem. So it's important that you always have a key with your stem and leaf plots. That is part of the stem and leaf plot. So we're going to do an example. So this is a software developer who's advertising a position at his own home office. The list below shows the number of applications the office received per day. We are going to make a stem plot of that data. So, for example, this first number, 9, means that on day 1 of the advertisement, he received 9 applications. The next day, he received 8 applications. On the third day, he received 24 applications. So these are the number of applications received each day. So with our stem and leaf plot, we set up 2 lines. One horizontal, one vertical. On the left side is where we put our stem. Remember, the stem is the leading digit. On the right side is where you put the leaf part. Remember, the leaf is the last digit of a number. So if we look at the numbers that are given, we want to identify what kind of stems we have. So what are the stems? So you're looking at the first digit in all these numbers. Since most of them are all 2-digit numbers, we're looking at the first digit. So the stem are those numbers. So we have some 1s, we have some 2s, there's some 3s and 4s and 5s in there as well. Then we have these 2 single-digit numbers. Okay? We still have to treat them as if they are 2-digit numbers, just like all the others. So what's in front of the 9 we consider a 0. So 0, 9 is the same thing as just a 9. So 0 is also our stem. Since 0 is the smallest stem, that's the number we're going to start with. And then you write each stem between 0 and 5, since 5 is our largest stem. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if one of those is missing, if I didn't have anything in the 30s or the 40s, I would still have to put a 3 and a 4 in my stem. So it always goes from the smallest stem to the largest stem, and you include all the numbers in between. So we have our stems. Now the leaf part, those are the last digits of the number. So if I'm looking at my single-digit number, 0, 9, the last digit is the 9. The last digit is the 8. Those are my leaf parts. When you write down the leaf part, you have to put them in numerical order. So 8 goes first, then 9. You have to keep them in order, small to large, 8 and then 9. Now we're going to look at everything that starts with a 1. So I have 18, I look for any other, and that's the only one. So the next one has an 8, and that's it. Now we're going to look for the ones that start with a 2. So I have 24, 27, 25, 24, 29, quite a few that start with a 2. So those are all of them. Again, make sure that those last digits are written down in order. So the smallest is a 4, and I have 2 of them. Then a 5, 7, and a 9. So make sure those numbers are in order. They must be in order. Then we go to the 30s. So 38, 32, 38, 32, and 39. So I had 2 32s, 2 38s, and a 39. My 40s, so I have a 41, a 42, 40, 47. Notice I'm using different shapes just so that it's easier to find my numbers. All right, so I have a 40, that's that one. I have 2 41s, so there's a 41 there and a 41 there. And then 42 and 47. And then with the 50s, we just have the 52 and the 56, so 2, 6. So that is my stem and leaf plot. Don't forget, you must also include a key so that we know how to read it. So the key, you would pick anything in the list. So for example, we have this 5, 2 right here. So I'm going to write it down exactly how it looks. 5, 2, like that. Then you're going to tell me what that means. So if I see 5 line 2, that means 52. And then make sure you tell me what the numbers represent, in this case applications. So that means 52 applications received. Okay? That is your key. So you have to make sure you include a key when you do your stem and leaf plot. Next, we're going to talk about our histogram. And so there's a few definitions, and then I'll talk about what those things mean as we are making our histogram. So we have the frequency. Frequency is the number of data values in an interval. So I'll talk about what an interval is and how we identify what the frequency is. Next is the frequency table. Okay, so we're going to use the frequency table to help us identify how many data values there are in an interval. So the frequency table is used to group data values into equal intervals. One of the things you need to remember is that there are no gaps between the intervals, and there are no intervals that are overlapping. So you want to make sure that the end of one interval is not the beginning of the next interval. And hopefully we'll get to see some examples of those when we get into class. Histogram is a graph that displays data from a frequency table. So the histogram has some characteristics. It uses bars to represent frequency in each interval. And there's no space between the bars. So an important thing to note is that a histogram is not a bar graph. So they're two totally different things. They both use bars, but a histogram does not have any spaces between the bars. The bars are connected, where a bar graph does. The histogram is about numerical data. The bar graph is usually used with categorical data, so that's another big difference. We're going to be using the histogram. And this note here is just what I was saying, that a histogram is not a bar graph. Okay, so next we're going to make a histogram using this example. So the number of song requests per day for a 2-week period at a radio station are shown below. make a frequency table and histogram of the data. So let's make a frequency table. So with the frequency table, we start with intervals. Then we do tally marks. This is how we count how many numbers are in each interval. And then the last column is our frequency, okay, where you actually count up how many tally marks there are. So you want to look at the data, determine smallest value. In this case, our smallest value is 10. The largest value looks like, okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and add a number. So we're going to add the number 50. Just so when we make the frequency table, I can demonstrate what I mean by no gaps in the histogram and making sure that we include all of the values, even if some of the values are not in the list. So since I have 10 as my smallest, I'm going to start with 10. And I'm going to go ahead and make my intervals of size 10. So you want to make sure that your intervals are the same size all the way through. So I'll go 10 to 19, so all my 10s will go in that group. 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, and 50 to 59. So you have to include all the values between 10 and 50 and make sure your intervals are kept the same size. Notice there is no overlapping. So if you look at these numbers, where this one ended and this one starts, they're not the same. It starts at the next number. So you have to make sure that there's no overlapping when you do this. And then you can go through and just identify where each number is. So 12 is in this group, 22 is in this group, 18 is in this group. So I'm just doing tally marks, just lines. 26 is in this group, 31 in this group, 34 is in that group. Now we're going to fill in our frequencies. So there are 6 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 values in the first group, 5 values in the next, 3, 0, 1. Now we're going to use that to help us make our histogram. So first thing you got to do is scale your axes. So I'll get y-axis, x-axis. You want to set up your scale. So we're going to set up our intervals. So the first one, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59. So those are my intervals. At the bottom, you need to make sure that you describe what they are. So in this case, these numbers represent the number of song requests. On the y-axis is our frequency. So this is how many songs were requested from each of these groups. How many times were 10 to 19 requested? How many times were 20 to 29 requested? So this is how many times the songs were requested for each of those intervals. Okay, so now we're going to plot. So the first one was 6. So in the 10 to 19 category, I had 6 times that somebody requested between 10 and 19 songs. So that goes up to the 6. In the next case, it was a 5. So 5 times there were 20 to 29 song requests in a day. The next one is 3. Then between the 40 and 49, there were no days where we had somebody request 40 to 4, or in general, people request 40 to 49 songs in that day. So we leave that one blank, but we want to make sure that it's included in the graph. So we still have it labeled because you can't skip from 39 to 50. You still have to have the 40 to 49 in there. So when I say no gaps, I mean no gaps in the numbers that you have on your x-axis. So 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59. No gaps. I haven't skipped any numbers. So I just leave that bar blank because we don't have any. And then the 50 to 59 was 1. There was one time that there were 50 in this case, song requests in one day. So that is our histogram. In class, we're going to try to collect some data and then do some more practice with stem plots and histograms, and answer any questions that you might have about making either of those two graphical displays. So I'll see you in class.